Time now for a look at the latest business news, and we're joined in the studio with Delano D'Souza, beginning with the IMF Director, Christine Lagarde, in Argentina.
That's right, Will. Good morning. The IMF boss was in the country, and Christine Lagarde says she's ready to assist Argentina. Discussions are set to continue on a loan program. Now, despite reforms, the Latin American country is once again grappling with a falling currency, high debt, and soaring inflation. Going to the IMF for help is a risky move for the president, Mauricio Macri. Selena Sykes reports.
Behind the smiles and the handshakes, politicians scramble to keep Argentina's economy afloat. Buenos Aires has begun formal talks with the IMF about a financial aid package and received backing from the central bank's chief, Christine Lagarde.
I stressed my strong support for Argentina's reforms to date and expressed the fund's readiness to continue to assist the government.
Concerns are mounting over surging interest rates and inflation. The peso has lost a quarter of its value in the past year, while the cost of everyday goods continues to rise. But the government's call for help from the IMF is risky. For many Argentinians, it brings back painful memories.
This money from abroad isn't going to solve our problems. It will create debt that will be impossible to pay off. We've seen this happen already in the past. That's why it's important people oppose it. We don't have to let them do the same thing to us again, when we already know it's bound to fail and will leave workers worse off.
Many still blame IMF austerity measures for the policies that led to Argentina's 2001 economic crisis. The meltdown caused Buenos Aires to default on its debts and plunged millions of Argentinians into poverty.
Now, days after Donald Trump walked away from the Iran nuclear deal, the U.S. Treasury has imposed sanctions on 6 individuals and 3 companies. They allegedly have funneled millions of dollars to Iran's elite Quds force. The Treasury Department also accused Iran's central bank of helping the group of companies and individuals access U.S. dollars held in a foreign bank. Now, Donald Trump has given grace periods of between 3 to 6 months for companies to scale down their trade with Iran. French companies are said to be amongst the hardest hit. Oil giant Total signed one of the most significant deals in Iran when sanctions were lifted back in 2015. They are expected to ask for a waiver since their agreement was signed before the return of these fresh sanctions. But besides energy, France's auto sector pulling out will have a negative impact on employment in Tehran.
When Peugeot already left in 2012, there had been a drop in production. They have 30% of the market, so when there was a drop in Iranian automobile production, it was a disaster for employment. So you can imagine the consequences on employment and industrial production if they were to leave again.
Now, looming sanctions on Iran's oil sector are keeping prices at 4-year highs. Iran produces around 4% of global oil supplies, and analysts expect prices to climb to between $80 to $100 a barrel once the sanctions start to bite. Currently, Brent crude and WTI are both above the $70 mark. There you can see Brent crude nearly $78 a barrel. Let's get a check on the markets next. And over in Asia, all the indices are trading in the green at this hour. Well, sorry, the Shanghai Composite down 0.3%. The Nikkei over in Tokyo ending the session in positive territory. The Hang Seng in Hong Kong up 1% at this hour. European shares have begun the session. Let's see what the opening picture is like. Well, positive open this Friday. The London FTSE completely flat at this hour. The Frankfurt DAX up 0.6%. In other news, Apple has abandoned its plans to build a $1 billion data center in Ireland. The plan had been delayed for years, and environmental activists were seeking to block it. Apple said the stalling had forced it to make other plans. The tech giant says it does, however, remain deeply committed to its operations in the country. Apple is estimated to be responsible for 1/4 of Ireland's gross domestic product last year. Now, Wall Street giant Goldman Sachs is reportedly entering the world of plastic. According to the Wall Street Journal, the bank has teamed up with Apple to collaborate on a credit card. A joint card bearing the iPhone maker's digital wallet logo could come out early next year, and it would replace a rewards partnership card Apple currently has with Barclays. And finally, for the business news, it's a first for Spotify. The music streaming service says it's dropping R. Kelly's music from its playlists and recommendations. This in the wake of a campaign to boycott the singer, who has been accused of sexual misconduct. The 51-year-old R&B star has been the subject of the Mute R. Kelly campaign online. R. Kelly's music will still appear on Spotify, but now it will no longer be promoted. Spotify says it wants its editorial decisions to reflect its values. And that wraps up the business news. I will hand it back to Will. But Will, it seems that this decision from Spotify comes a little too late, because we've known for years that R. Kelly has been involved in sexual misconduct and no one's done anything about it.
You know, we were listening to Remix Ignition there. Maybe Spotify's remixing its rules and regulations. Delano D'Souza, a roundup of the business news. Now